Welcome to the Fold Mysteries, where we seek to discover everything that lies between the folds of reality. And today we had an intro. And thanks to our guest last week, I figured out a way to provide myself with a soundboard.
There we go. You got that one too, right? Yeah, it's awesome. We had such fun time with Steve Calls last week.
Yes.
For those who are here tuning in, watching tonight's show with Shane, do yourselves a favor and catch up. And if you haven't watched Steve's show, watch Steve's show. Do yourself a favor.
It was such a fun show. It was great. It was informative, and he had a lot of great things to say and to offer to the show. But then he was funny, and that was really cool,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've ever had such a hard time reading a bio in my life, and it wasn't because I was getting my words mixed up.
Yeah,
making me laugh.
You're right. Oh my gosh, and that's just Steve in a nutshell for you. Very informative. His techniques when it comes to squash and when it comes to asking the right questions and stuff like that as well is very important when we're dealing with eyewitnesses and stuff like that. Because as a researcher, it's on our shoulders to differentiate. Yeah, is he being honest or is he being deceitful?
Right.
So, the way he does his questioning and lines of questioning and stuff like that, I've known for quite some time. But it's always good to hear him as a refresher course, too. You know what I mean? And he's an author of some great books out there that are on Amazon as well, you guys. So Steve Calls, if you Google that, there's some good information on his books, too.
Yeah, definitely go check him out. Check out last week's show. It was really fun. It was great. It was a great show. But for anybody who is interested, we're pushing hard on the last minute wrap up for the conference, getting all the merch finished up, and I'm really excited because it's all coming together. So if anybody would like to sponsor a speaker, get a hold of me. We'll work something out and we'll make it worth your while. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm nervous yet excited. As more things are coming together, I'm getting more excited, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be awesome. So scan the QR code. If you can't get that to work, there is a post on the Fold Mysteries Facebook page. It's a link. It'll take you straight to it. Which way is it? This way or this way? This way for me.
There we go.
Which way do you go, George?
There we go. Oh man, that's awesome.
He has no idea what monster he has created.
I seen it coming. I honestly seen it coming because your eyes were like a kid in a candy store. Like, wow.
That was so much fun. What about you, Abe? Your conference is speeding up too. What's going on?
It is, and you know what? And we got a few more months though, so it gives me a little bit more time instead of. But nonetheless, I mean, things are on the way. We got a few speakers confirmed as well. We got great MC, co-host MC, yourself. Where's the applause on that one? No.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah. Arsenio Holidays, yeah.
Yeah.
So things are going on. I mean, it's just been busy. I've been in the field pretty much every weekend since the end of April. It'd be for research and mushroom hunting, and research. This past this past weekend was no different. I sent you a video, but so I was going to this one area because the weekend before last, Bear definitely got to the tree camera where we have facing a teepee formation. And so this past weekend, I was going to go out there and switch out the camera, batteries, SD card, and put everything into the new camera. Excuse me. On that tree camera that's already out there, I have a padlock, so it can't be opened and stuff like that. And then somebody takes the whole camera and just cut it off and stuff, So I thought I forgot the keys to unlock the padlock here at home. And I'm going through everything while I'm in the location. I didn't hike all the way back there, but where I parked my vehicle, I was just going over stuff. Oh, dang, I'm kicking myself. Like, dude, you're freaking, I'm going a little hard on myself, but you know what?
Yeah.
It is what it is. I laughed at myself. So I'm like, okay, well, I camped out, had a good weekend. I got out of there before the severe thunder came. And so, lo and behold, when I got home just yesterday, I've been keeping my eye out for these keys. Like, hey, where the heck did you put it? Because sometimes when you're packing and you want to bring everything, it's better to have it and not need it, and then to need it and not have it, right? So when you're packing, it's just like, okay, throw this in there. I opened up my car door, and there the keys are on my turning signal blinker handle. No. Yeah. So
I was going to say they were with you the whole time, weren't they?
Yeah, it is what it is. I can laugh at myself. I can absolutely laugh at myself. Because when you cry alone. But not the world else with you, right? So, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. This was you
so there's
out
that.
there in the woods.
It was, Yeah. And Bigfoot's like, run, that's a big guy. No. So, yeah, it is what it is. Had fun. So, getting out there, not this weekend, obviously, it's the country's 250th anniversary, 4th of July. And then the weekend after, we are going to be in Reamer, Minnesota. So, doing their Bigfoot days out there. And maybe that during that time or the weekend after. It's just July is already shaping up to be such a busy month because we got this one guy who's, I forget what he is, but he's worth a network called Northern News now that we're going to be taking out into the field on the 25th. So, yeah. And then the conference. And then in August, we have the Kids Weekend Bigfoot Camp coming up 21st through 23rd. First of its kind here in Minnesota. So we're going to be pushing that. And then September, we kind of get to chillax a little bit before October in the conference. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But it's go.
You sound like me. You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, I got multiple plates too. I wear multiple hats and all that. Those plates are, on top of being owning my business and being a dad and stuff like that. So, and it's all over the place. But I got the peace. I got peace, which brings it all together.
Yeah. And I mean, aside from everything else we have going on, you invited a great guest to the show tonight.
Wow, I got goosebumps. My hair just went like this. Yes, sir, we sure did. So you want to read, give them a great, I mean, this guy, I've known
Let's
for
welcome Shane Corson to the show.
Shane!
Let's put you on the big screen. Hey.
Hey, guys.
Applause.
Oh, yeah, applause. I'm not quick enough for this. I need 5 people.
Man.
My gosh.
Just to introduce you, Shane. So you were born in Scotland, and Shane was interested in cryptozoology as a young lad and moved to San Diego, California when he was a teenager. Shane has always been an avid outdoorsman, adventurer at heart, and interested in discovering new things. Shane loves trekking, hiking, hunting, fishing, and testing his survivalist skills. And in 1997, he started doing field research on the subject of Sasquatch and spoke with witnesses who had possible encounters primarily in the San Bernardino Mountains, Yosemite, and Northern California. He moved to Oregon in 2008 and continued his research in the Pacific Northwest. In 2011, his research became all too real to him when he had his own Sasquatch encounter. Shane's passion, perseverance, and methodology, along with his ambitions of furthering the research of Sasquatch, eventually led him to become a proud member of the Olympic Project and subsequently now is running the project. He is a member of Project Zoobook and has a YouTube channel called Sasquatch in the Mist. Shane has also been involved in Sasquatch-related documentaries, TV programs, as well as many radio shows and podcasts. And now this one. So we're happy to have you along.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're on the minor scale, but that's I appreciate you coming today, and I've always found your work to be very interesting. So you are from Scotland, which I don't know how I didn't know that. So you came from Scotland, and how old were you when you came over from Scotland? And
I was
started,
13 years old.
not to
Moved
age
over.
you, but
Yeah. I'm getting there, but no, I was 13 years old when I moved over. Obviously, I don't have an accent anymore, and there's a story behind that. My dad, who lives in the States here, Southern California, his accent is still pretty thick, but he lived there the majority of his life. I moved over relatively young and wanted to, uh, you know, uh, be assimilated into America, and I found it rough at first when I moved to the States. I had this thick accent, and I moved to kind of a country town, and everybody, I got in a lot of scuffles with the guys because of my accent. So I'm like, I gotta lose this thing, and so I went out of my way to sound like an American.
so you forced yourself to lose your accent.
I did. The only time I ever get it back is if I get, a little angry. And then or I have relatives come over from Britain, Scotland. When they come over, it's, I don't even notice it. My wife notices it, that my broch comes back,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going ham. What are you all going to? Hey, it comes back relatively quick. It's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, no, not at all. I've always found that accent to be almost like magical, just because I mean, there's a lot of mystique in Scottish and Irish legend and lore. So I think a lot of people compare those accents with that mystical sound. What are you laughing about, Abe? Don't laugh.
Well, because when you said magical, it made me think of Lucky Charms, like my cereal.
Thank God, that's not even what I was thinking.
They're magically delicious. No.
Yeah.
So it was just something that came to my mind, and I was like, "Oh no, shut up, man!" So,
But you didn't.
Right, yeah. So I just bit my tongue off, but then you had to ask me, so I told you. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, where's your soundboard now? You need that. Where's me Lucky Charms?
Yeah. Oh,
I know.
my
I need to
gosh.
find it. So you were always interested in mystery, right? So did you do any kind of research into the lore where you came from prior to coming over to the U.S.?
Absolutely. So it was my mom that got me interested in cryptozoology, mysteries, paleontology. Paleontology was probably my first love. When I lived on a little island off the west coast of Scotland called Islay. And if you know Islay, it's well known for its whiskey. It's got the most amazing whiskey on planet Earth. But my mom got me interested in paleontology, and I used to write actual physical letters to paleontologists in Glasgow and in Edinburgh, mainland Scotland, and they would write me letters back. And I was just really interested in dinosaurs, but my mom got me interested in just mystery and what's around you that you can possibly help discover or look into. And I looked into, at a young age, dinosaurs, and I went into like Mokle-Mbembe, in Africa, the Congo. I looked at the Yeti, Mapinguari, all Almas, all these, and then of course Sasquatch. And my mom is American. She's American. My dad's Scottish. That's how they met. My mom moved to Scotland, and they met that way. So when we eventually moved to East County, San Diego, I'm now in California, and I was well aware of the Patterson-Gimlin film and some of the reports from those areas. And I was heavily invested in mystery, dinosaurs, cryptids at a very young age.
Wow. I mean, I'm kind of similar to you in that I always had some sort of interest in the mysterious, and that's where I fell in love with Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and all that good jazz. I never knew that there was this wide, vast array of cryptids until I started going more into researching it all on my own, armchair research first. But you came over, you started researching in 1997, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then you didn't have your first sighting until 2011. So that was 13 years difference. So you were out there doing quite a bit of research. It took you 13 years to even have your first sighting.
Yeah, in 97, so 97 was a big year because that's really when I got my first vehicle, that I could drive around by myself. And, when I graduated, I had loaner vehicles, family vehicles, but I got my own vehicle, and I started going up and down the San Bernardinos, Cleveland National Forest in California, looking up old reports. I fell in love with Yosemite. That's an area I spent a lot of time in, Yosemite Valley, all around that area. And so I would spend, 12, 13 hours driving up there periodically, backpacking remote areas, just, with the history in Yosemite and the Sierras in general in California. It's got a rich history of Sasquatch. And I talked to a lot of interesting witnesses. I talked to a couple of park rangers that had weird things happen. I talked to, a lot of different individuals that had possible Sasquatch experiences. But I never, during that time, had anything happen. I ran into a lot of bear and a lot of other animals. I ran into weird people. And I never found anything, but maybe one track in all those years up until 2011 that I would say was Sasquatch. So I was like, even at that time, I was kind of like 50-50 on the subject. I think there's something to it. People are seeing things. I've never had my own experience. But people are seeing something. But I was still pretty on the skeptical side. It was about 50-50 if Sasquatch was real.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I can understand your hesitation because, there was probably a huge gap in time between each little finding that you had. And the longer the gap is, it's the more you start to doubt, because I've experienced that myself. And then you have that little bit of that, either a finding or an experience, and it kind of reinvigorates you and pushes you back out there again. So I understand that, because I was very skeptical myself until I had my first experience, which I didn't even see it, but it solidified things for me quite a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's the thing is, when you look at what always kept me going was, first, my passion for the outdoors. In where I grew up in Scotland, on this island, we had patches of forest, but we didn't have big mountains. We had hills and glens and patches of forest. When I got to the States and really started, after 97, started going out, I didn't grow up a backpacker. I didn't grow up, I did do some camping on this island, but when I got to see how amazing America was, specifically California at that time, I fell in love with nature. And I always thought to myself, it's so vast. It is so vast with these big mountains and these big hills and all this forest that it wouldn't surprise me. At that time, it never would have surprised me that there was Sasquatch out there. And I just wanted to try and figure it out for myself if there was something to it. I didn't contact any. I watch all these different programs and whatnot, documentaries. This is pre Finding Bigfoot and whatnot, but all, you name it, I probably watched it. And I thought to myself, I never contacted any investigators, any researchers. I'm just kind of a solo guy doing solo things, enjoying nature, getting out in the woods with the hope of having something happen. So yeah, it's amazing to me to, even now that I know, the confirmation as far as Sasquatch being real, that ship sailed years ago. But that, the evidence is, it's out there to be found, and there's a lot to learn still, and I'm learning every day.
Oh yeah. So, go ahead, Abe.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, absolutely. It's just finding it. I don't know if we're a whole lot alike. Going out in the field and just being out in nature. A lot of times I am out there myself more often than not, even though I got a great team of guys. It's hard to get our schedules aligned and everything like that, where we can all be in one place for an extended period of time. But nonetheless, if not, I'm out there by myself. I don't know how many times it has been like that for me in the past, but just to get out there, it's so, how can I say it? It's so, it's serenity. It's a piece of serenity. It's a peace of mind. It's melting off everything, from the work week from 9 to 5 and everything like that, and letting that all come off. And it's just reinvigorating, for the soul as well. as far as, are you self-taught tracker from different ungulates, and how did the tracking? Are you into foraging as well, looking for different plants and things like that that are edible too, or um, what more than just Bigfoot do you incorporate in research?
Yeah, 100%. It's absolutely super important, in my opinion. And it sounds like Abe, you go along these lines as well. I mean, it's and I also forage for mushrooms and other things up here in the Pacific Northwest. I love chanterelles.
Yeah.
But to learn, this is why when I first started out, researching, I would, first of all, I look back now and I was doing a lot wrong. I mean, almost everything wrong. But I would go from report, here was a report over here, I'd drive there, I'd go here, I'd go there. It wasn't until later on that I really came to the opinion, and this is through the Olympic project as well, that it's better to stay in one area for a lengthy amount of time and learn the plants, the seasons, the animals, all that stuff, that you become an expert in that area. I don't care if it's a couple of miles to 100 square miles, you stick to that area. If there's Sasquatch in the area, they'll probably be back. But to learn, what could they possibly be eating? What can you eat? What are the other animals eating? When are those animals there? What time of year? What elevation? Where's the nearest water source? When are the salmon coming up these creeks? When are the mushrooms popping out? When are the berries coming out? How long are the berries there? And so you have to, if you take this subject, the Sasquatch subject, serious, in my opinion, again, you have to become so well, you have to build up such knowledge on an area that it's, and you can never stop learning, but build up a real big library of known animals, what they're doing, their sounds, where they're going, how they're going, what they're eating, so that when you come across something like a Sasquatch, or you come across physical evidence, you can maybe look at your data and go, okay, it was here maybe for this reason, or it was going from here to here, or it was doing this or that, or whatever have you. So you're not just going in blindsided, and it might help you answer some questions, but it might help you bring up more questions, So, I'm a big proponent of being the best outdoors man or woman, that you can, but also being a naturalist in that area, to the point where you you can't be fooled, but also when things happen, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, it's blatantly obvious that this is not natural or not known behavior of something, or not a natural find that that could be explained away as an ungulate or a bear or this or that, or even a human for that matter.
Mm-hmm. I have that big smile on my face and goosebumps because I'm geeking out, and I'm geeking out because everything that you said I totally agree with, and I do as well. It's just you're not, and we all know this from spending time, days, hours, years in an area, that there's more often than not nothing is going to happen. But more than having something happen, a major part of research is just being in the area and looking at and knowing your flora and fauna and the resources there as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to your point earlier, Abe, I do a tremendous amount of stuff by myself, and that's mainly because of schedules. Obviously working with the Olympic project, we do a lot of stuff together, but at the same time, people have jobs, they have families, they have other stuff going on, schedule conflicts. So it's hard to really organize stuff weekly. And so I'm very fortunate, I'm now up in Washington State. I picked a spot in Washington where I can get out to the woods daily, like all the time. And I'm not out daily per se, but I'm out, 3 to 4 times a week, if not more. Sometimes I'll do an overnighter. A lot of times it's just a day trip because I got close proximity to forests, to research areas. And so that's a huge blessing on my end. But yeah, if I had to rely, or someone had to rely on me for getting out in the woods, depending on schedules, you wouldn't get out that much. You just wouldn't.
Yeah, and it is what it is. Yep.
It is what it is, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, if you're not in the woods, you can't find stuff, you can't experience stuff. And so, all of us, I think here, there's a portion of us that are armchair researchers because we do stuff online, we go to libraries, we do all that. But a huge portion of what we do is definitely in the woods. We take that knowledge to the woods and we put it out there for what it's worth,
Yeah, we try to apply it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, sorry, that's my grandson in the background. I think that I think field research is a very important part of the research in Sasquatch. I also find benefit in those that offer new ideas who are armchair researchers. 100%. And then you have, the people that are more scientific based who can do the studies and run hair samples and stuff like that. I think that everybody plays a really important role in this field of research, no matter how you approach it or how you're researching. So, I think a lot of people used to shame on armchair research, but I think that armchair research offers a wider variety of information versus people who are out in the field. Yes, they have a lot of knowledge of armchair research, but a lot of their research time is spent out in the field getting hands-on experience. So to me, I think that all of the aspects of research are important as a collective.
Yeah, well said, Gwendolyn. I look at it as kind of like, the food pyramid. I look at that with research, enthusiasts, investigators, because there was people that were armchair researchers long before I ever started getting into the woods or even being an armchair researcher myself. Yeah. And I've learned a lot over the years from individuals that don't live in areas where they can get out to the woods, or they're disabled, or they just don't care to go out to the woods. They'd rather do everything online. And there's absolutely 100% a place for that. Because, like I said before, I've learned a lot from individuals that are either into books and online stuff, and then they come up with some great ideas or some input, something they discovered online or in a library or in a newspaper article that I don't have the time necessarily, or I haven't done my research on that subject matter, and they bring something to the table that is another piece of that puzzle we're all trying to put together. And that to me is phenomenal. So, no, absolutely 100% agree with you there.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think, Abe? I'm going to mute real fast. I got to go check on my grandson.
Okay. Well,
his mom stepped out.
I thought that was a sound bite.
Not this time.
I agree with you also to a certain extent, because for being a field researcher, what I would do is, what I have done, is I also do a lot of armchair behind the scenes, reading up on everything I can, being book read, internet read reports and stuff like that too, where, I appreciate what the armchair people bring. And you're right, it might be something out there that I'm not covering. So everybody who does have that different point of view can bring something different, and that may open our eyes up to something that we may already had our eyes closed to. So, and when they pass it along to the field researchers and we're going out there and they're like, hey, maybe try this or maybe try that. Cool, let's do that. Let's go out there and try to implement that. Let's try to apply that and see if it works. Because, that is a part of science, is going out there and testing different things and hope something that will happen. If something does happen, and if we can repeat it and have the same effect, then we may be on to something.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I always say, too, that a lot of the research starts at home. It's before you ever step to the woods, before you step into nature, before you go out to an area. Obviously, you're doing homework on an area, right? You're looking at the geography. And so that is kind of armchair research. You're looking at the geography. Why, what animals are in this area? What food sources? Why would I go to this area? And so that is a bit of the armchair stuff. And again, nobody, I'm definitely not a scientist, but nobody is born a scientist, right? What is science? I always say the foundations of science is observation. Somebody at some time, whether it was Plato or whoever have you in whatever field, they observed, they They came up with a question, a hypothesis, they test that, and then they move forward. And then they, based on their observation and their hypothesis and their whatever they conclude, they teach that to the next generation, the next individual. And so, with the Sasquatch, field, there are no experts, period. There's experts in their field, but there's no experts. But we can observe, and we be the best darn citizen scientists that we can by observing. And there's merit to that. You're basically doing science by observing. And so whether you're observing stuff online or observing things in the woods, that's science. That's the foundation of science.
Yeah. I love the way you said that. And that's it. I feel like that is also the way that Bigfoot research is progressing. Like you said, you observe, you test the hypothesis, and you move forward, and then you pass that information on to the next person. I think a lot of that happens in Bigfoot conferences where you network and meet new people and stuff like that. That's why I fell in love with, I honestly like just visiting conferences, because then I get to walk around and talk to a lot more people. But it's fun to get to speak at them too, because you still get to walk around and meet a lot of people, and compare that information that you've gathered with what they've gathered, and vice versa. So yeah, I love the way you said that. I did want to ask you, what's your style of investigative research? Like, how do you approach an area? What's your process? You talked a little bit about learning the area and everything that's in it, the ecosystem and all that, but beyond that, how do you kind of go about your research?
Yeah, I'll say this right now. Right now, we have the Olymp project and some of the individuals we work with. We have about maybe 4 core areas, and they were all based on different things. Quite honestly, some of them were based on Sasquatch reports, historical and recent. Others were based on finds, like the nest site. That was based on a find, not by the Olymp project, by another individual. But just walking into an area blindly, I actually like to look for areas where there's all this natural habitat that, you have, you could have bear and deer and elk and a salmon creek. You have all the requirements for animals to survive and thrive in that area, whether predator or not, and where people aren't going. Because obviously, at the end of the day, it takes a Sasquatch and a person to have an encounter or a sighting. But there's areas around North America that people don't go to. Doesn't mean there's not Sasquatch there, but it just means that people don't go there. And I like to look for areas where it has all the right environmental things going for it, that maybe a Sasquatch is in this area and no one's seen it because nobody goes there. I love areas like that. And I also do like areas where there's a lot of history of Sasquatch reports, whether it's, an observation of seeing one or having rocks thrown at you, or a roadside crossing, or, wood knocks or vocals. I do like those. But I really like areas where you look at a map and you're like, nobody's going there. Nobody has been there. If they've been there, they're not, not reporting it or not telling anybody. And so I like a lot of those areas. But right now, we're working on 4 different kind of core areas that we've had stuff happen over the years. And they were either brought to our attention by a third party, or we've conducted a lot of research there based on historical reports, based on stuff we've had happen, we stumbled across. And so that's generally how I get into an area. But I don't ambulance chase anymore unless it's really recent and it's close by and it has something to do with what I'm working on. Obviously, if someone saw a Sasquatch, yesterday, and there's maybe some physical evidence, a track, hair, whatever I can find, and it's within reason. Like, I don't have to drive from Washington to Idaho. That's something I would probably check out. But I'm not going to go across the country or hundreds of miles for something that the weather may wash out, or I'm not even sure that they even saw what they saw. And I go all the way out there, that gas money, that everything else is better spent somewhere else. So I'm more about honing in on and just researching the snot out of core areas that you just, like Abe said earlier, most of the time you go out to these areas or the woods in general, nothing happens. Like, more than 9 times out of 10. But when something does happen, it's very profound, sticks out like a sore thumb. In some of these areas, we have long-term audio units recording year-round or monthly, stuff like that. So I can monitor that very intrusively, because audio is awesome, and you can just go in there, change the batteries, SD card, leave, come back a month later and take that information, vet it. Okay, we have something going on here. And so that a lot of ways I let the audio do the work for me. And then, other times it's just, boots on the ground, just getting out there.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think audio is a very promising research tool. I wouldn't call it evidence. I mean, yes, there is some evidentiary backing because of audio sounds. However, as the technology gets better, we can kind of deduce, like some of our previous guests have talked about, what sound came from where. But then there's that burden of proof, but it's a great investigative tool to guide you on whether or not you need to move your area where you're researching and things like that. But I mean, it'd be great if we could get the smoking gun and end up with a Bigfoot. Obviously nobody kill a Bigfoot, but end up with a Bigfoot in somebody's possession, some researcher's possession, where we could thoroughly study and have that full proof. But for now, I think audio, you're right, it's a great investigative tool.
It's awesome. I personally love audio. We have members like Chris Spencer of the Olympic Project, and then we have David Ellis of the Olympic Project. And I do this stuff too. I've been doing it for years, where you have something of interest on your audio. And you're not, back in the day, years and years ago, you would spend hours and hours like listening, reviewing it, just listening to it. And you're like, oh, that sound like this, that sound like that. Oh, that's exciting. Or you weren't sure. Nowadays, that ship has sailed. Now we look at stuff visually through a spectrograph, and you can compare. This is where I think it can be a little bit of evidence, because when you can visually, like we all have our own voice signatures, animals do, and when you can use things like the Macaulay Library of Sounds to compare, and then your own personal library, if you actually keep that, if you get a deer that's trotting through the woods, or you get a deer that's huffing at you, or you get a bear that growls, or a coyote that goes off, or a barred owl, you have that in your library, and then you can compare visually the vocal or the sound that you have and compare it to known animals. And when you can roll all them out, then you're left with like, okay, well, that's not anything known in this area. This is not, this is why it's important to stay in one area for a lengthy period of time, to get to know all the animals in that area, to record them, to make a library of their sounds, to know when they're coming through, what time of year, what season. There's a lot to this. And audio, to me, is just one of those huge steps forward in learning an area. But when you can visually look at something and go, okay, that's not a human, that is not an owl, that is not a coyote, that is not blah, 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 then you're left with, okay, this is something I can work with, I can work off of. And then you can, depending how your audio out in the woods, you can triangulate. Okay, it came from the northwest, it came from the southeast. And then you can go out there based on the audio and look for evidence, or keep recording. Maybe something's going to go on there periodically for the next couple of weeks or a couple of nights, or maybe something will come back there the following year. We did the Olympic Project with our good friend Squatcher Metrics. You can find him on Instagram and Facebook, Squatcher Metrics. We did a year-long recording study in our nest study area, where we had SM4, which are SM4 units are basically professional bioacoustical audio recorders. They're not cheap. Upwards, the ones we had at that time were about $800 a pop. The minis are a little bit cheaper, but they're amazing. But we recorded every night for a whole year in this one area, cataloging in spreadsheets that Chris Spencer really and Squatcher Metrics really helped out with. Every known animal, every known sound, and then we had our suspect stuff. And we, via spreadsheets, now we have quite a picture over a year of recording and documenting every animal, that now we have something that actually is physical that you can actually share with wildlife biologists. You can share with others, even the Bigfoot community. That is kind of evidence of something odd going on certain times of year in certain areas, and is unknown, indescribable, and doesn't match anything that science has cataloged yet. And so I love audio. I love audio.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish the audio could be proof enough, but I definitely think you're right. I think it is a form of evidence that something is going on out there. Now, you mentioned your nest area, and I'm not sure if you meant what popped in my head, but have you ever heard of the Bigfoot nests, these giant nests that they're finding on the ground? Have you heard about that? They're interwoven. They almost look like giant bottomless giant bird nests.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you're talking about the LIMP project. That's our study. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, as far as like what they're used for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, that's a complete hypothesis on our part, specifically mine. When these nests were discovered by this timber surveyor back in 2015 May. Guy had been at it for 27 years, marking possible timber cuts and as a surveyor, and he never came across anything like this. But we don't think the nests were made in May. They were discovered in May. We, based on the degradation of the evergreen huckleberry, after Derek Randalls and I actually physically made a nest ourselves just to see how long it would take in the natural environment for it to degrade, for the leaves to brown up and get crispy. And, we were pretty confident that they were being made in the months of February and March, which coincides with a huge salmon run. Now, when you have, I've had a lot of time to think about this, obviously years, and came across a new nest in the making with my partner, Todd Hill, 2020, February of 2020, tail end of it, when we think these things are being made. And based off the characteristics of the original nest area, we kind of figured out, okay, they should be on a western-facing slope, should be above a seasonal salmon creek. Again, we are the opinion that these nests are made every 4 to 6 years, roughly. They're not made every night. They're not made every week. They're not made every year. So getting back to our hypothesis, these nests, I fully believe if Sasquatch is making them, and I'm basing that off of hair finds, hand impressions, foot impressions, the construction, the location, the historical reports in and around this area that Sasquatch is making these. If they are making nests, I fully believe it's a birthing scenario. That's just my opinion. Multiple nests of different sizes that took a lot of work and a lot of effort to make, but they were made in such a great area where you had all the food sources. You're remote. Nothing's going to bother you. And coincides with like salmon run with even in the month of February in this part of the Olympics, there'll be huckleberry still, wild berries, salal huckleberry, and in rare occasions, Oregon grape that are still prevalent if you don't have a huge frost. Our berries grow like most of the country, right? August. That's when, if I was to go out in August in this area, it's going to look like a freaking orchard, just berries everywhere. You just eat them all day, just pick. And then they tend to, September, October, they start kind of fading away. If there's not a heavy frost, those berries will be there through February. And so I am again, a complete hypothesis. I've not seen a Sasquatch make a nest. I've not seen a Sasquatch give birth. I've never, but I have to question if Sasquatch is making these nests, which I fully believe they are. Why? Because we find, even though the vast majority of nests found, the vast majority of them historically are found by timber cruisers, timber surveyors, people in the timber industry, because they get way off trail, where there are no trails, because they have a job to do. That's where historically, whether it's California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, British Columbia, Idaho, Montana, that's where nests are found. And most of these guys have never seen anything like these. So they're not being made all the time, in my opinion. I think they're for a season and a reason. And I think that's quite possibly a birthing scenario, and goes in with my hypothesis. and I base it off kind of like orangutans. Orangutans give birth like every 4, 6, 8 to 8 years. So you don't have a ton of orangutans everywhere. They give birth, not every year. They're not like most animals. The orangs give birth periodically, and they call them old man of the woods. And there's a lot of similarities. I'm not calling Sasquatch an ape, though I think it's a primate, me personally. But there's a lot of similarities, even with nest construction and all that. But I like their birthing scenario where I think Sasquatch might be something similar, where they don't give birth every year. Maybe they do. I don't know. But I tend to think that it's probably like on a cycle, like maybe every 4, 6, 8 years. And they come into these areas and they build nests. They know when the salmon are coming through. They know when the bears are going to still be there. They know when the mushrooms are going to be around. They know where the ungulates are going to be. And they can have all the shelter and food sources. So, again, that's a running hypothesis that it's going to be, I don't know if I'll ever prove or not. Fortunately, the nest being discovered in 2015, and we were brought in there. And then Todd Hale and I walking in on a nest being made in the end of February, like we thought they might be, and finding 14-inch tracks again, same kind of tracks we were finding in the original nest area, hand impressions, hair. This isn't known Northwest America animal behavior. I'm a hunter. I run to bear beds. I know what bear hair looks like. I run it at bear tracks, even a double stamp, all that stuff. This is something unique and profound. And man, that was a lengthy answer to a simple question you gave me.
Yeah, but that's like a huge deal. And I don't know. And before, probably like, I don't want to date myself, but let me think. Maybe like 30
You're like 24, right?
More?
You're like 24, right?
Thank you. I knew I liked you. No, like 30 to 34 years ago, when we were kids and playing out in the woods and stuff, we would come across these igloos. And we would play in them, and they were always packed full of this real soft, marshy material. And, even at that age, I was able to look at things and kind of dissect it. And you could just tell that this mulchy stuff was carried in. It wasn't something that grew out of the ground. And these interwoven things that created this igloo shape was dead branches. And we would tell my mom about them, and she never came out to the woods to look at. We would play in, but me, my cousins, my sisters, we would all play them as kids. We called them our houses, and those are gone. You don't see those anymore. And I'm just wondering how it progressed from these igloo style huts to these nests. And I've always kind of wondered how the progression happened, if it was a necessary change due to human encroachment, or if it was just a change due to not as being as big of a necessity to have the full hut. Like I'm kind of weighing on that idea.
Yeah.
I mean, your thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know. It could be geographical. I mean, just because Sasquatch makes nests in one area doesn't mean they make nests in another area. I've never personally come across anything igloo shaped or teepee shaped that wasn't, me personally, again, that wasn't natural or man-made. But again, geographically speaking, based on culture within different family groups or units or whatever have you, they can be doing something different in Washington over Ohio, Minnesota, Texas, Oregon, but the nests that I've when these nests were brought to our attention, they weren't even on my radar. I didn't even think about nests. I figured Sasquatch just did like most animals do, and got a little bit of bedding or just laid down or found a shelter. But when I started doing research on nests, specifically ground nests, I was blown away with the amount out there that had been found throughout history. Across, mainly, there's been some interesting ones found in Florida, Like I said earlier, Northern California, Idaho, Montana, British Columbia, Alaska, Washington, Oregon, but they're all not necessarily made out of the same material like huckleberry, but they're made out of material, but they're very similar in structure. They are gigantic ground nests, and they're formulated the same way. They're usually found off a ridge line on a finger above a creek. Doesn't necessarily have to be a salmon bearing creek, but and a lot of times they're found on western facing slopes. So there's historically back to, like, I think the first one I found was 1898, and then moving forward, like in Robert Alley's book, Raincoat Sasquatch, he has a fantastic picture from Alaska of a giant nest made out of, I think it was bark and boughs, ginormous, but the same MO on a finger coming off a ridgeline and found by a timber surveyor. So maybe Sasquatch does something a little bit different in one state compared to another state. I don't know. I just tell you right now, if Sasquatch is making nests, they're not going to be stumbled on. They're not, in my opinion, again, going to be found in easy to get to areas. The nests we have been led to are 2.5 miles behind a locked gate and then way the heck off trail. I mean, no trails, no game trails to this area, nothing. You have to bushwhack, and it's brutal, and you're going to fall. You're going to stumble. These aren't, I don't think Sasquatch is going to make a nest next to a man-made trail or, or even a shelter for that matter, unless they're using for a blind or something. And we don't really find those out here. We don't really find nests. I mean, they're that rare. But we don't find a whole lot of shelters or anything like that. Most of our tree canopy up here is a roof over your head. So you don't need to build something over a nest. You just need to insulate yourself from the ground and let the tree canopy be your roof. So the ground nests, I think, are mainly to keep yourself insulated off the ground, keep from getting wet. So it's kind of a barrier from both wind and the elements. But the tree canopies up in these areas are so thick. Like, you can't fly in a drone and look down. You can't, I don't know. They're just amazing. And so you let nature be your house. And if Sasquatch is built to survive like a bear or elk or deer in these areas, for me, I don't know why they would have to build a shelter or a roof. The nest makes sense to me. I can even see them possibly utilizing a small cave or an enclave or something. But again, I don't know if they need that. They're built just like, I hunt black-tailed deer out here. They call them the gray ghosts of the woods because they're the hardest deer to hunt in North America, in my opinion. They're there 1 minute and they're gone. But they survive and thrive in the thick stuff and in the rain. And they're not that they could, because they've got hooves, right? But they don't need, they let the canopy be their shelter and their cover. So to answer your point, Gwendolyn, maybe what you guys came across is something that the Sasquatch out in this area just never learned how to do, or, they utilize different techniques to survive and thrive.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that we played in them as kids, and then after I started getting into research, I would find them periodically. It was a mix of like live small trees and dead things and dead branches and stuff, and use that to kind of interweave this igloo shape with an opening. But then I just stopped finding them, just completely. And I found them different places around Ohio, but now you don't see them anymore. And I just wondered if there was just a progression that had happened based on need. Like you said, the canopy provides enough shelter, and maybe there was less need for a roof type, or maybe that was used for, juveniles or young ones.
Could it be just because you discovered them and now you left your scent there, and now they're no longer hidden?
Well, when we were kids, we used to play in them, and then one day we came back and it was gone, and we found one a little deeper, and then we came back and it was gone. It was like they would just come and go, and month to a couple months later it would be gone, and then another one would sprout up and we'd play in that one. But the ones that I found through my research, they just kind of stayed until fell apart naturally.
Yeah.
But then I just stopped finding them in general. But what type of material have you found in some of these nests? And have you
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the nests. I mean, so in this area, you have rhododendron, you have salal, which is the ground cover. It's anywhere from a foot to 2 feet off the ground, maybe 3 feet if it's really scraggly. You have a lot of Doug fir trees, but the vast majority of this area is evergreen huckleberry. So the nests even with the rhododendron, the rhodies there, with the salal, with pine boughs, and I mean even skunk cabbage and devil's club. These nests are only made out of evergreen huckleberry. That's it. There's no other plant made with they're purely constructed out of evergreen huckleberry. So, and we're talking these nests, in one area specifically, what we call the original nest area, there were 7 nests, very strategically placed, kind of in a triangular formation, with the larger nests on the outside, the smaller ones on the inside. So you probably had larger individuals protecting whatever was on these smaller nests on the inside. Very primate-like. Elk kind of do the same thing when they bed down. Elk will bed down in that, keep the young ones in the middle and the larger ones on the outside. You can find their beds where they've laid down with elk. But so only evergreen huckleberry, which is the most prevalent plant out there, but also the comfiest to lay on. The bottom of these nests were made out of larger huckleberry boughs, and transported sometimes 50 feet away. So it wasn't just like, oh, snap, snap, make a nest. Tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of huckleberry with the larger boughs on the bottom, smaller ones up top, kind of formulated into like a bathtub shape. I was going to mention something earlier with my running hypothesis when it comes to it possibly being a birthing scenario. I was talking with my buddy Wes, who's the man behind the curtain with Squattrometrics. He was asking me about the medicinal purposes of huckleberry. Now, obviously, the huckleberry berry, we know, antioxidants, all that. But he asked me specifically about the leaves, and I said, I don't know. So he had done some research. I had done some research, and lo and behold, doctors used to give women a concoction of huckleberry leaf and sugar after childbirth to help them regain their strength. Next to some of these nests were piles of huckleberries, like where something had plucked them, something with an opposable thumb had piled massive amounts of huckleberry leaf there. When I had originally got view of these nests, I was brought into this area and got to view them, and I saw that. I thought, well, is it a food source, or are they going to put it in to help, make the bed a little comfier? It wasn't until later we found out about the medicinal purposes of huckleberry leaf. So I thought, wow, and that really got the ball rolling with it being possibly a birthing scenario. And then also, I know there's a lot of controversy right now with the Bob Gimlin, the Patterson Gimlin film. I poo-poo that. I don't care. In 1967, there was a timber cruiser surveyor out there in Bluff Creek. He was above Scorpion Creek, which feeds into Bluff Creek. He found a nest. He actually found a nest in 1967, a stone's throw away from where Patty was filmed. And his description of the nest is exactly like what we've come across and been led to come across. Well, if you look at Patty, and I still believe she's 100% a Sasquatch. And if she's not, she's not. But I fully believe it. Patty is obviously a female. And, people have speculated, did she give birth? Was she about to give birth? I don't know. But there was a nest found there in 1967, right around the corner from where they filmed her. So this all goes into why I think it's a birthing scenario. And now, again, nests found out throughout North America are typically made out of different material unless there's huckleberry there. But they're usually almost always, whether it's bear grass, pine boughs, they're only made out of, you don't find a whole concoction of different material. So when these nests are made, they're made out of one plant. And that's something I don't know why yet, and that's a question. The nest that we're working on, the nest area, the huckleberry makes sense. It's the most prevalent plant. It's easily, everywhere. But then to find out that the huckleberries have the leaves have a medicinal purpose really got it really makes one think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dave,
Cool stuff.
I didn't want to take over. I didn't know if you had anything. I could
No,
keep asking.
no. So the only thing I can think of.
Can't hear you.
Hello. No.
I think it's your mic. Maybe I've gotten messed up. So tell us a little bit about Project Zoo Book. Iffy. It's a little bit wonky.
Project Zoo Book's awesome. So Amy Boo, who lives in Ohio.
Love her.
Yeah. Oh, she's amazing. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She works with the Limit Project too. She's a part of it. She is basically the founder, organizer extraordinaire with the Project Zoo Book, and it basically started out with a couple of zookeepers that she got in touch with, and she started collaborating with them, and then it kind of grew from there. And Amy Boo's built this really cool scenario where it's a think tank where we do bi-weekly Zoom calls with academics and laymen such as myself, or researchers, investigators, and it's a giant think tank with a lot of different academics. These academics, the vast majority of them are still in the Sasquatch closet. They don't want to come out yet and say, hey, I'm interested in Bigfoot. They have careers, they have goals, but they're willing to have a conversation. And what Amy Boo has done is help connect that to help create a conversation and include some extraordinary academics and researchers, and our goal, kind of a core member with this, but our goal, and we base this off of the late Dr. John Binternagel. Dr. John Binternagel, biologist out of Vancouver Island, he always had an issue. When we would talk, his biggest issue, and you can read this in his books, you can listen to old shows from him, or even look up his YouTube channel. It's just Dr. John Binternagel. It's only got 8 videos up there, but they're fantastic. But his biggest issue was with his peers, those he worked around that would not have a conversation, that would not even look into it a little bit. They just poo-pooed it. And so John's goal was to make this subject matter less taboo. And that's kind of our mantra now, is to make the Sasquatch subject less taboo. Let's have an open dialogue, an open discussion. You don't have to be a believer, a knower, or you can be skeptical. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is something going on here. People are seeing things. People are finding things. Not just yesterday, not just the day before. We're talking for hundreds of years in multiple states, in multiple countries. People are seeing things. So Amy Boo, again, has created a think tank group and got just a really great group of people together to discuss Sasquatch and bring ideas to the table, bring correlation between known species and the Sasquatch. So Project Zoo Book, it's Amy's baby, and I'm very proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, again, that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, just having a variety of input and intellectual levels and research capabilities.
Yeah, and some of these individuals in the group, I mean, you got zoologists, primatologists, archaeologists, marine biologists. You have such a different gamut of folk in there that you would go, why? But a lot of them are so scientifically minded. They actually bring a lot to the table. We're talking about armchair researchers. Well, we have academic armchair researchers, academic field researchers, but they're all very scientific minded. Some of them have had their own encounters. Others are a little skeptical, but they're like, okay, this is a good conversation. We need to talk about this. There's something going on. What do you have to bring to the table, and how can I look at this analytically and maybe bring something to the table, and maybe together we can figure this out or have some good ideas. So there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with skeptics or people with a question. I can't stand skeptics. I mean, they're useless.
Yeah.
They're just useless. But skeptics are, I'm all for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely makes you look and wonder things a little differently, even if you fully believe. And, focus your investigations a little differently based on the skeptical belief.
Yeah, it's good to have that balance. It's good to have that balance because not everything is Sasquatch. And it's good to have that balance and a different set of eyes, that will question you. Well, could that have been this or could that have been that? And then you kind of go through the process of going, of vetting your data or vetting whatever transpired. And, when you come down to like, okay, we are left with an unknown here, and this is not normal, normal that, this is interesting. And then you have a foundation to work with and you can move on from there. And that to me is the most exciting thing, when you can talk to individuals and get them down to that foundation where you come together sometimes. And then you can look at that foundation and go, okay, well, now we have to look at Sasquatch as being a possibility.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Abe, how's your audio now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you better now.
Okay, good. All day. Where do I go? So back to the possible birthing scenario, one kid about every 4 years or so. In that area, I was just thinking about that and how it might make sense to have just one offspring in that time frame because of the resources that may be limited for that offspring to eat.
Yeah.
And also have the adults as well. You were also talking about the huckleberry evergreens. Have you guys ever noticed, but at least here in Minnesota, is that the evergreens hold heat a lot more better. They're the first tree that fully melts the snow compared to any other tree as well.
Yeah.
So that could be a good because they're a great conductor for heat and they hold it in there too. So
absolutely,
it's because they're darker, they're green, they hold that energy source from the sun, which would make it stay more warm, more hotter longer too. If they are birthing in the cold months and giving birth in the, carrying in the cold months, but birthing in the spring stuff.
That's really interesting, Abe. I'm glad you brought it up. That's a really astute point about the heat can, how they can absorb heat and almost radiate heat. Evergreen huckleberry leaves are just perfect for that scenario. And in this area too, though, even though you think of February, March, in this area, I wouldn't say it's like a Minnesota cold winter. It's it's a little different. It's a little more temperate. Yeah, it's a little more temperate in this area. We do there is snow, there's frost, but you get the rain, and I'm telling you, it's just it does get cold, but it doesn't get down into like the negatives or anything like that. It's very temperate. So, and maybe that's why this area, because it's its own little microclimate, maybe that's why it'd be a great area to make nests, Right. And your other point about, having one individual, I have no idea. I have no idea if Sasquatch gives birth to 1, 2, 3. But, if they aren't small in number, like I tend to believe, if they're small in number, that's probably their normal MO. They probably have one offspring, maybe two, and every 4 to 6 years. Mm-hmm. And they survive and thrive that way. They don't need to have any more. That's just their number. Again, anybody's guess. Throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, as David Ellis always says.
I love David. He was actually a guest at the NBC a couple years ago. We had a great time with David. We were talking about nest structures. And for, the igloo ones or the Ohio grassman structure that everybody's so familiar with. Are you familiar with the work of Mitch Wade from Arizona?
Yes.
And the Mogollon Rim, and how the alleged nest that he found actually went in there recorded something. I got goosebumps. Recorded something that's in the back of this Ohio grassman dome-shaped, igloo-shaped kind of a nest back in there as well. And you can see these eyes peering at him as well. So there was definitely something in there in one of his videos.
Yeah, I faintly remember that one. And Mitch Wade is since passed on, correct?
Yes, he has.
Yeah. Mongolian. Yeah, I remember.
You're
bringing back memories. That was quite a. I remember when I first started jumping on the Facebook. Back in 2008 or 9. and
Yeah.
he was one of the first individuals sharing stuff
Yep.
online, and then I got to know him, and I've talked to him. I think I've even interviewed him when I used to do my Monster X radio podcast years ago.
Mhm.
But I do faintly remember that, and I remember it being pretty interesting. Yeah.
I had him on MNBRT radio too, but he also worked where he would monitor anything leaving the atmosphere and also coming back in too. Unfortunately, I can't get those radio shows back from Blog Talk Radio.
Me neither. Me neither.
Right?
I feel your pain.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
You know what's funny, Abe, is man, we had so many good interviews. I'm sure like you on Blog Talk, and I was fortunate. There was only one I saved, and it was with John Binternagel, and I still have that one.
Wow.
I still have that one. It was like 2 hours long, and so I have it. I saved it, and I don't know why I saved it, but I saved it. But all the other ones that all the people I've interviewed over the years, some really good conversations, all the wonderful guests, gone.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I was working on John Binternagel to come on MNBRT radio in 2018. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know he was sick with what he was sick with. True story. He passed away the same day, same year my grandma passed away. So
no kidding.
Yeah, that just gave me goosebumps.
Wow.
January 17th of 2018. Yeah. So I was working on having him come on the show, and then after Grandma passed away, it was like, okay, my number one fan just passed away, and it was like, okay, if I have more time to do this stuff, I have more time to spend in the field too. So that's where I kind of switched gears and just spent more time in the field as well, which I love.
Yeah.
I love being in the field too. It was. You're absolutely right. All the great people, the conversations. And without those, I wouldn't be where I am at today. And I'm sure all the knowledge that we've gained in doing that, and I see that happening here with Gwendolyn as well. So it's like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, I mean, like over the years, talking with people on, when I did the, I look at now we use StreamYard and all these different avenues, YouTube. I wish I really had that back then. 'Cause Blog Talk was good for a minute, but then it went down south. You always had issues and crashing and this and that, but I missed the reason I did it at the time wasn't for notoriety. I wanted to talk Sasquatch, and I wanted to talk to people about Sasquatch.
Yeah.
That's it. I loved having a platform to talk about it, but also giving people a platform to share their experiences, and all that. I mean, I think we started doing our show in like 2012 or 13, and I mean, over the years, I don't know how many amazing people that some of them have since moved on, unfortunately. But what a platform it was, but again, like you, Abe, and Gwendolyn, how much it takes to, people think, oh, you just jump on to do that. It takes time, effort to put a show on. It takes homework. It takes a lot of. It's a job most people don't really get paid for. And so, I, with my radio days, I thought about doing another one, but I enjoy my time. I just don't have I actually have a lot of time, but I don't have enough time to put together. Well, I spend it in the woods, but I love these platforms, and I love when I see people like, you, Abe, and Gwendolyn, and others out there that have wonderful shows, podcasts, whatever have you, radio shows, YouTube shows that are keeping the subject matter alive, thriving, giving people a platform. That's why I when I can, and I can do a conference, a symposium, I'll try and do it, because I'm always blessed to have that platform to talk about something I love.
Yes.
It's not about me. Put a bag over my head and I'll just talk. I don't care. But at the same time, it's a platform to talk about something you love, to share stuff with people and get their feedback.
Yeah.
And that to me is that's what it's all about,
Absolutely.
Here we are 15 minutes into the show. We're 15 minutes into the show, and we still have not heard about your encounter.
Yeah, your experience.
Oh.
I mean, that's
not 15 minutes into the show, but all this time. But I actually want to hear it too.
That's what my heart was like when I was having that encounter. Let me tell you.
Yes.
Oh, it was, no joke. Long story, but I'll give you the skinny. Because I'll be honest with you guys, I never want this Well, it's lit. What happened to me solidified Sasquatch exists. I mean, solidified it, like no question, went out the door. But uh, it's a beast of burden in a lot of ways because people define you sometimes by that, and I don't want that to define me.
Right.
I still question things about Sasquatch. I just don't question if they exist. I
You
question
got to.
where are they going, what do they
Yeah.
eat, how do
Yeah.
they survive, do they give birth those are questions. That's where I'm at now. But my encounter, so I moved up to Oregon in 2008 with my wife. She's from Oregon. And so we left California, moved up to Oregon, her neck of the woods. And from 2008 through 2011, I had a day job, was working, but I loved camping, hiking, fishing, and researching Sasquatch. And when we moved to Oregon, I was so happy because, now I'm thinking Northern California was awesome, but now I'm in the Mecca. Now I'm in these areas where it's way more lush. There's a lot of rainfall, a lot of reports historically and way more recent. So I'd go to areas like the Tillamook area on the coast of Oregon and around Mount Hood. Well, on this particular trip where I had my encounter, I went out with two friends and they were coworkers. They were familiar with Sasquatch, the stories. One of the guy's girlfriends had an encounter a long time ago, but they weren't researchers. They were friends. And what we had in common was we loved fishing. So we found an area around Mount Hood, some high mountain lakes up around Mount Hood to go fish for brook trout and landlocked cutthroat and rainbow trout. I love fishing. So we found these pristine, beautiful hiking lakes. And we go out to this area in Mount Hood Wilderness, and we set up our camp around, we hike in. It's 5 miles down on this long, nasty logging road, and then you have to hike into this lake. And we get down to this lake, we set up our camp, and then, it's still pretty early in the day, so we go up looking for the next lake. There's 7 lakes in this area, and they're spread out between, 2 miles to 5 miles to 7 miles away. And so we were going to try and fish every lake. So we set up our camp, we go hiking, we get completely lost on this ridge line. I think that day before we made it back down to our camp after we found the trail, I think we hiked like 15 to 16 miles, just completely lost. It was the only time in my life I've ever been lost, like that. So we actually make it back down to our camp spot. We had 3 tents set up. One was my buddy Mitch was next to the lake. He had a bunch of skunk cabbage around him and in a kind of a muddy area, and he's right next to the lake. And I'm at the point, so we're kind of triangular formation. So my buddy Mitch, myself, and then my buddy Ian off to the right. We're next to this lake, and there's a big rock slide on the other side of the lake, and we're kind of in this bowl. We have a little bit of a hill up behind us that surrounded us. And so just to give you context about this area, lots of pine trees, not a whole lot of undergrowth as far as green plants, but sticks, fallen trees everywhere, and a lot of rock. And so our goal while we were out there was to spend 2 to 3 days, hopefully 3 days in this area, hitting all these lakes, hiking in, fishing, coming back. So like I said, we get back to our camp after we got lost. We end up catching fish in the lake, and we cook up a meal and go to bed around, I don't know. We discussed plans about what lake we were going to hit up the following day. Now that we kind of had our bearings and weren't lost, we knew where the trail systems were. And so we go to bed around 11:30. And then around, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear just repetitious rock clanking or something smacking. It sounded like 2 rocks being smacked together, coming from a distance, but getting closer and closer and closer. And this is, like I said, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. This area at night I've camped there many times since then. This is my first camping trip there, but it is dead quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Yes, you have an elk out there. Every animal you can imagine. But at nighttime, it is so dead quiet up there. It's amazing. It's hard to sleep if you need a white noise. Anyways, so I hear that sound coming up, and my buddy Mitch, who's next to the lake, goes, "Hey, do you hear that? You awake?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "What do you think it is?" And I have no idea. It sounds like 2 rocks, like almost like river rocks being smacked together, and it's getting closer and closer, and then it stops. And then we hear movement around our camp. Just something stomping around, breaking branches. At the time, I couldn't tell if it was breaking branches off a tree or just stomping on them. I'm assuming it was stomping on them, but just moving up and around us. And that went on for, I don't know, a couple of minutes.
Wow.
And I was like, man, whatever it was big. And so I'm thinking in my head, could it be elk? Okay, it's not a bear. Could it be elk? I'm like, no, it sounds bipedal. It sounds way too big. What was making that sound? Could it have been antlers, smacking together? Trying to rationalize it, but I was a little freaked out. And then, we're listening to that, and then all of a sudden that noise starts up again, and it leaves. It just gets further and further away, and it's gone. And that was it. I mean, I laid there and racked my brain on what it could be, went to sleep, woke up next morning. We were talking about it. And then we're like, I don't know. That was weird. But we're like, whatever. So we go off, we make breakfast, we hike off all day, hiking a couple other different lakes in this area, catch some fish, bring them, hike all the way back, 4 or 5 miles back to our camp. Same MO. We cook a meal, we cook our fish, talk about our plans for the following day, just chatting around the camp. We had a big fire going, really obnoxiously big fire. And that's because my buddy Ian, he was definitely afraid of bears, and we did see bear sign out there. And and I'm like, you're fine, man. They're black bear. If you see one, they tend to 9 times out of 10 will just run away. Just see ya. You'll just see the butt end of them. Or in some of these areas, if they're a couple 100 yards away and they're eating, they'll just do their thing and they just ignore you. I've had a lot of experience with black barrel deers. Man, I have been bluff charged one time, but that's another story. And so he was definitely afraid of bears. So he built up this huge fire, and I'm like, it's August. I'm like, you gotta be careful. I know even up here in Mount Hood area, everything's still kind of wet, even in August, but we got to be careful. But builds up this fire, and anyways, we go to bed, and again around between 1 and 2 in the morning, I hear that sound again. Just it sounds like 2 rocks being smacked together, and it's coming again from a distance, from the same general area, which is basically going uphill from our camp. That kind of leads to all the other lakes, and it's kind of a really crappy trail. I mean, you could kind of lose your way if you're not really paying attention down trees and rocks and creeks. But it's coming from that general direction. It's getting closer and closer and closer. And then again, my buddy Mitch is like, "Hey, do you hear that? Are you awake?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "It's back." I said, "I know." Again, what do you think it is? I'm like, "I don't know. It sounds like 2 rocks." And we're whispering. We're just a couple feet away from each other. Like, "What do you think that is?" And that rock clanking sound stopped, within fairly close proximity of our camp. And then you hear that marching around again. You hear something just walking, circling our encampment. And my buddy Mitch goes, "I'm hearing something to my left." Well, I'm hearing something to my right. So in my head, I'm thinking, is there 2 of whatever this is out there? So now I'm like, okay, whatever it is came back a second night. Now my heart's going a little bit. I was packing a sidearm. We all were. But it's, I'm like, this doesn't seem like any known behavior, I can't ever say at that time I was thinking Sasquatch. I don't know if I was thinking monster or something. There's nobody out here. No one's going to come find us and mess with us, because who would take that chance of being shot? 1 or 2 in the morning, and we're like miles and miles in the middle of nowhere. Like to find our camp would have been just silly. So I'm like, and how could they maneuver in the wood? I couldn't figure it out. And anyway, so we hear the stomping around, and then that stops. So I'm laying on my back in my tent. My heart's just, thumping. I'm like, all right, what's going to happen next? Well, all of a sudden, up on the hill above my buddy Ian's tent, a little ways back, just bam, bam, bam. 5. I've never heard anything like this before then and since now that I would compare. It was just 5 of the most powerful percussive sounds, like coming off a tree. Something hitting a tree that it would echo across the lake, hit the rock scree, bounce back. You could feel the reverberation in the ground, how powerful someone was smacking a tree. That you're in our tents. Now we're all awake. I mean, completely awake. And just 5 of them. And you just hear the echo. And from dead silence to just, imagine someone shooting a shotgun off right next to your tent. It was just so powerful and so loud. It was crazy. I mean, now I'm like, You know, my heart, I can't hear anything. You know, if this thing made a vocal or noise, or I never, yeah, perfect. That was me in my tent. And I'm like, I'm thinking, wow. And then, so that stopped. And I'm listening again. And up through the trees from where that knock had occurred, or those knocks had occurred, I hear something coming through the pine boughs up above, like pretty high up, 20, 30 feet off the ground, say, and it's hitting all these branches come down. I hear break, snap, 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 and then thud right next to my buddy Mitch's tent. He was camped next to the lake. He had a kind of a big, like soggy, wet, muddy area with a bunch of skunk cabbage. And you could hear this thing just go thud. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, you know what that was?" I'm like, "No way." He's like, "Something just threw a rock at us." So now I'm like, it just escalated. Everybody's kind of silently freaking out. Like no one's screaming or yelling, but I could hear heavy breathing. People are like, "What's going on?" And my buddy Ian was not in a good spot. I don't know what he was going to do. So I unzip my tent. I'm like literally, "Please, Lord, please don't let me see anything. I don't want to see anything." But I zip my tent. I'm looking around. Got the fire off to our left here. I'm looking, and behind this really big Doug fir, and that's what's basically out there is big Doug fir, old growth Doug fir. Big old growth Doug fir. I see movement, and so I'm looking at this thing, and I see basically fingers. I see just dark, blackish, but fingers, hair, arm, shoulder, and then basically this was on the front of this big Doug fir. And then from behind the tree, every once in a while, I'd see it sway, just pop out like. So I only get a glimpse of the head and more of the shoulder. Didn't see a neck, just coming from behind this tree, back, forth. The hand was kind of stationary, so it was just doing one of these. And this thing just looked like a double-sided fridge, tall as heck, just big and burly. Wow. And I was like, "Oh, is this thing looking at me?" I remember going, "Is this thing looking at me?" As I was thinking that, it dropped its hand from in front of the tree, walked out from behind the tree, and just dropped its hand to its side, and then it turned its back on me and went up this little game trail, just right up it towards the area that we had just got done hiking earlier that day, and disappeared. I don't know where it went. It left fairly quiet. I don't remember it like hearing any noise as it was walking away, like as it came into camp. I heard all that breaking. Didn't hear that. So it goes. I'm laying there, and I laid it for a few seconds. I zip my tent up, and I'm just waiting for something to happen. I got my flashlight ready. I got my sidearm. Waited. Everybody's breathing heavy. Nobody's talking. And none of us ever went back to sleep. We just waited. Didn't talk. Just waited. And then as soon as daylight hit, we all collectively just packed up our stuff and got the heck out of there. And I look back at that encounter for a lot of reasons, because one, it solidified Sasquatch for me. I know what I saw. I know what I was looking at.
Jeez.
But I guess, the questions, well, I had a lot of questions at the time. In fact, I had to question if I was even going to go back out into the woods anymore. I mean, quite honestly, I called myself a researcher, investigator. This is what I always wanted until it happened. And I decided at that time, I'm like, I wasn't prepared. I was like 50-50, and I wasn't doing anything Bigfoot related. I didn't have any equipment on me. I wasn't making calls. None of that. I was just out there camping, hiking, exploring, fishing. I think my personal opinion, because I've never had another like significant 2-night experience, which with something I would believe as to be Sasquatch. This was a rare occurrence for I think a lot of people, including myself, where this thing came back 2 nights in a row, maybe more than one, but came back 2 nights in a row, and it kind of escalated. At the time, I would have said it was super aggressive. It was, but when I look back at it now, it wasn't really aggressive. It didn't come in and hit our tents with rocks. It didn't throw a limb at us. It was intimidation. Yeah. And that's at least my opinion. I'm not in a Sasquatch brain. Maybe it was being aggressive. I don't think so. I think it was intimidation. I think what happened, I've had many years to think about this and many months, but I think when we got lost and got up on that ridge line, which basically that ridge line was above that lake. Like when we got lost up on that ridge line, I looked down, I'm like, there's the lake we were camping at. It looked like just a small lake, and it's a much bigger lake than that. But we were so high up there, we got lost, went off trail. We were seeing bear sign. some of that sign might have not have been bear sign. It might have been Sasquatch sign. I wasn't even thinking Sasquatch at the time. We're off trail. We're hiking. We're yelling at each other because we're lost. We're urinating. I think we walked through something's living room, and it followed us back. And for 2 nights in a row, it said, "You need to get out of here." And the second night, I think it worked. We got out of there like as soon as daylight hit. Looking back, I wish we had stayed a third night. I really do. But back then, I was absolutely scared out of my mind. I had never experienced anything like this. I've been charged by black bear. I've been around all sorts of gnarly animals, weird people in the woods. I'm prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for this. And so it took me a while. It took me a month to go back out there. And I thought, this is where arrogance comes into effect, too. I thought, I know where these things are at. I can prove this. I'm going to prove it. I came up to Oregon. I know where they're at. I've had an encounter. I know they're real. I went out there, nothing. Went back out there again, nothing. Maybe a distant knock. And that's where I realized that I was doing a lot wrong. One, I had a lot of arrogance because I know Sasquatch is going to come back through. No, you don't know. You don't know squat. You're going to be the one to prove it. No, I had so much to learn. And then I also called myself an investigative researcher. I wasn't really. I mean, I look back now and I was doing so many things wrong. I wasn't collecting data. I wasn't journaling stuff. I was just going out there and for an experience, calling myself a researcher. And then later on, after that encounter and me going out there many times, having nothing happen, I decided I need to reach out to people. There's people that live out here. There's other researchers that have been going out, not in that area per se, but out to these areas that have been doing this for years. That's where I eventually ran into Cliff Barrickman and Derek Randalls and became a part of the Limit Project eventually, and really learning how to collect data, how to be a physical researcher, and actually be a bit of a citizen scientist where you don't just come away with stories anymore. You're looking for stuff. You're documenting. And I learned a lot from Derek, a lot from Cliff in the gang, and realized that this isn't necessarily, somebody driving a logging truck, right, can smack a Sasquatch, drop it dead, game over. But I learned that it's very important to work with people, that this is not a one-man band, that working with individuals, whether you're in a group or not, or you just work with other individuals that are like-minded. I learned so much from that experience in August of 2011 that it reshaped my research, reshaped my life, and put me on a path now where it is super exciting, man. Let me tell you, it is. I wouldn't trade this for the world. When you know these things are real, it's exhilarating because now you don't have that question anymore. Now you're like, I want to know more about him. I want to know more about him, and that's where I'm at. Like I'm hungry. Like feed me.
Yeah, exactly. When you were telling that story, it was like it was the best start of a horror movie. Like it always starts slow and then it progresses. And that's kind of what it did with you. And it was a multiple night thing. It was a 2-night thing. Yeah. And that kind of leads into one of our questions from the chat. And they are asking if an encounter would go beyond aloof and brief, like a many-hour communication or multiple night, do you think that it would be benevolent or guarded or cautious? I'll leave that up there.
Yeah, I'm trying to, let me see here. I don't know. I think Sasquatch are a lot like other animals in the woods and a lot like humans. I mean, we're all a little bit different. I think most time, honestly, Sasquatch just avoids people. I just think they avoid them, just like your black bear try to do. Every once in a while, they'll screw up, or if they want to be seen, they'll be seen. Yeah. And it's usually for a reason, probably distraction from whatever they're trying to distract you from, or make themselves known that you bugger off. But benevolent or guarded or cautious, I think Sasquatch is super cautious, definitely guarded, but I also think they're curious. And that's how I kind of worked into my research nowadays, how to be, humans are very predictable. I think we're very predictable. We stick to man-made trails. We do this. We build a campfire. We cook food. We play music. We drink beer. We do whatever. We're very predictable. So I try to be unpredictable to elicit a response or an encounter. I get off trail. I'll hike all day. Not to have a Sasquatch experience that day per se. I mean, I'd love to have one like that, but actually
Yeah.
to do something so that if Sasquatch is in the area, and after I'm done hiking around looking for, evidence, tracks, whatever, I come back to my camp, I'm hoping to entice something to go, what is that guy doing off trail? Why is he up here? And then maybe come back to my camp, trying to maybe mimic what happened to me in 2011. And it's paid off over the years a little bit. But a many hour, this Sasquatch was definitely trying to communicate something with us, not verbally. I don't think I ever heard, other than the knocks and the rock clanking, never heard a vocal. Could have. I was scared. Maybe I just didn't hear it. Didn't smell anything. I think it was trying to communicate, get the heck out of here, in a polite Sasquatch way, and, the first night didn't work. So it came back the second night, and the second night worked. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question. I was a little bit confused by it, but I think I got the gist of it.
Yeah, I think you answered it. And, I think that depending on the type of situation that happens, your experience with Sasquatch depends on what they're trying to do. And I think when they start throwing rocks and they start encroaching in a way that makes you feel intimidated, I think that's the whole purpose. They want you out of that area. And then, I think when they're kind of standing out to the side and making those accidental noises, maybe that's more curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it just depends on, excuse me, the type of experience you have, their purpose, and then there's also accidental, like you were saying.
Yeah, there's lots of different scenarios there. I mean, are you dealing with a smaller one, a juvenile? Are you dealing with an older one? Are you dealing with a female, a male? I mean, there's lots of different scenarios there. And then, what time of year, where are you located, where are the food? I mean, there's so many different scenarios. It's hard to, like even with my encounter, I'm guessing that's what happened. I could be completely wrong. But I'm trying to formulate something that makes sense to me. Why a 2-night experience? Why did it come back 2 nights in a row to this one location when it's got vastness of woods, like vastness, millions and millions of acres? Why?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about maybe it's instinct? Maybe like sea turtles, they go back to the same beaches they were hatched from. Maybe it was the same location that it was birthed at. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I actually think that with these nests, which are non-Washington, or not in Oregon, but in Washington State, I actually think that might be a scenario. Maybe this area is an area that we've been led to work on these nests that they come back to, almost like salmon, right? Salmon go up the same river.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then we can talk about sea monsters too. I actually think this is funny. I just had this conversation with somebody so random the other day about I'm from Scotland, Loch Ness Monster, and I said, you know what? The same thing that's seen in Loch Ness is seen out in the open ocean. I actually think, some of these, whether it's Cadborosaurus, Loch Ness Monster, Lake Champlain, if you have access to the ocean, maybe it's an ocean dwelling cryptid that gives birth in a lake and then leaves. That's why there's only periodic sightings. Well, Sasquatch could be the same in one area where it's just giving birth. This is its area they've been giving birth, kind of like their Mecca, the place they go back to, and then they leave.
Oh, it's funny you say that because here in Minnesota we have a lake called Lake Pepin, and we have a alleged lake monster called Pepe the Lake Monster in Lake Pepin, and we're nowhere near an ocean.
Okay.
However, we got we're the second biggest lake here in Minnesota in the world, called Lake Superior. That's way up north, but Lake Pepin is way down south, more towards the Iowa border. Yeah. Shane, man, we've covered a lot, and I know we're just at the tip of the iceberg. Do you have any good audio recordings, any pictures or anything like that? I mean, I'd still like to talk about hominology, physical anthropology with you, where you think they're at on the spectrum. But we're gonna have to have you come back, man. Can we get you back here?
Oh, absolutely. I love the show, love the platform. Gwendolyn's awesome. Abe, you're like my brother from another mother, and
brother.
I would love to come back. And again, give me a platform we can all discuss and talk. I love it. I love this topic matter. It's so much fun for me. I really do enjoy it. Yeah.
There was 1,000 more questions I want to ask, but for now, at least, you have the Olympic Project and Project Zubik that you're a part of, and then you also have on YouTube Sasquatch in the Mist, correct?
Yeah. I when I first started Sasquatch in the Mist, it's obviously a play off of Gorillas in the Mist.
Nice.
Kind of a play off of that. Again, some people get offended when you call them gorilla. I'm not calling Sasquatch a gorilla, but there's a lot of similarities, and I just like Sasquatch in the Mist because half the time I'm up in the Olympics, it's misty out. I'm hiking in Washington, it's misty out, and I just always see a Sasquatch coming out of the mist. In my head, like, oh, that could happen.
That'd be so cool.
So I just love that name, so I called it Sasquatch in the Mist. It's mysterious, but I went hot and heavy for a little bit, putting out videos, and then I got super busy with work, life, and it started taking away from. I don't want to get in the mode where I'm always thinking about videos and posting them online and YouTube. I'm going to do more videos. There's about 4 or 5 up right now, and I have more in the works. And so if people are like, oh, it's a little stagnant, I'll be uploading more videos. But it's really a journey about what I'm doing in the woods, what the Olympic Project's doing in the woods, open discussions, ideas, hypotheses, and taking people out to the areas I go to, and just, again, creating a discussion with the Sasquatch. It's that's why I didn't call the show Shane Corson Looks for Sasquatch. It's not about me. It's about the Sasquatch in the Mist, the mystery, that there's a lot of questions still out there. Even though I know these things exist, there's still a lot of questions. I'm not an expert. There's a lot of, and then, a lot of pieces to the puzzle that can be put together. And so I love feedback. I love, like you said, shows like this where, you'll maybe say something in my head. I'm like, I never thought of that. Or it'll spark a question that I'll look into, or maybe I'll say something. You'll be like, hey, that sounds kind of cool. I'll try that here, or I'll look into that, or, it's a village mentality,
Yes.
It takes a village.
Yeah.
And so we're a big village.
Absolutely. Yep. I love that. Yeah, we'd love to have you back on again. And we're so grateful that you were able to make it on this week. And you were a pleasure to have on the show. And I didn't get to all my questions, but, there is next time.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you again for the invite. I've been the one that's canceled on you guys, I think, twice now. And I told Abe, I said, unless I'm dead, I will be there.
So, and this is a great sign.
I'm so glad you're here because I don't want you to see you dead either.
No, I don't want to be. Maybe if I was dead, I'd still be here. That's how hard I try to be here.
Oh, the ghost of insane Shane Corson. That's great. Shane, brother, love you, man.
Thank you guys.
And
love
thank
you
you tremendously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. And happy 250th, America.
Right
yes.
on. Yeah.